Det står att cloud recording är full. Okej, jag ska bara ta en paus. Hello and most welcome to 2090. We would today have a lecture of The Language of Science by M.A.K. Halliday. And we will start at page 51. 51 is in the chapter Things and Relations, Regrammaticizing Experience as Technical Knowledge. And we are at the last paragraph on page 51, beginning with, "It is easy to demonstrate It is easy to demonstrate that this principle with meanings that are construed lexically, it comes down to the question of what phenomena we call by the same name. Of the various objects sticking out of the ground that I can see outside my window, some are trees, and some are bushes. And some are shrubs. Some of them are shrubs. Shrubs they are. Why, I don't know. But that's how it is. Give me a shrubbery. And of the humans that are passing by, some are walking and some are running and some are driving in cars. We can observe small children working hard to construct the theory, the category meanings of words in their mother tongue. And we become aware of the problem for ourselves when we learn a language that is culturally distant from our own. From our own. From our own. From our own. But the more pervasive categories of our experience are those that are construed grammatically, since they provide us with a general foundation for understanding our environment and ourselves. In the most general terms, The grammar construes experience as process. In the form of a grammatical unit, a clause. Each process, in turn, is construed as a configuration in the form of a grammatical structure. Grammatical structure. The components of this configuration are the process itself. 2. Certain entities that participate in the process. And 3. Various circumstantial elements that are associated with it. These are construed in the form of grammatical classes. The verbal, the nominal, and some more or less distinct third type. Then one process may be construed as being related to another by some form of grammatical conjunction. Grammatical conjunction.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grammatical conjunction.
The way things are is the way of grammar. The way our grammar tells us that they are. So, in parenthesis, the relations of the world, or even that there is such a thing as a world, is grammar, or the grammar. In the normal course of events, we do not problematize this construal. It is our taken for granted reality, and we do not reflect on why the grammar theorizes experience the way it does, or whether it could have been done in some other way. If we do reflect, we are likely still to appeal to a sense of what is natural. What is natural? We might reason that as long as to our perceptions things stay just as they are, we do not experience them. Experience begins when the organism becomes aware of some change taking place in its environment. In its environment. Or in itself. Hence, the grammar construes experience around the category of process. Of process. Process.
Yummy process.
Process.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
A process typically represents some sort of change, of which staying the same, not changing, becomes just the limiting case. The limiting case. But sorting out a process of change from the entities that remain in existence throughout and despite the change. Let alone from other phenomena that are seen as circumstantial to it. Is already a major enterprise of semiotic construction. If we consider a simple clause such as the sun was shining on the sea, a considerable amount of semiotic energy has gone into the grammar's construal of this as a configuration of process shine. Participating entities sun and circumstance on the sea. Taken purely in its own terms, as a perceptual phenomenon, it would have been simpler to construe it as a single, unanalyzed whole. It is only when the whole experience is being construed as an ideational system that the analytical model, breaking down a complex perception to recognize likenesses of many different kinds, shows up as infinitely more resourceful and more powerful. To pursue the same text further, the sun's shining may be attended by other circumstances. With all his might, and the sun may participate in under other processes than shining, trying to make the billows smooth and bright. The billows smooth and bright. What is significant for the present discussion, however, is not so much the particulars of the experiential model as it evolved in human grammars. Rather, it is the fact that the same evolutionary processes which make it possible to construe experience by transforming it into meaning this way. Also provides the means with which to challenge the form of the construal. When experience has once been construed, it can be reconstrued in a different light. In a different light. Three, stratification and metaphor. It is, I think, acknowledged that human consciousness is the product of natural selection. That there is no need to postulate some mysterious entity called mind. Itself, as Matheson has shown, rather one-sided product of the grammar's construing of inner experience that lies outside the processes of biological history. Neuroscientists have shown that the brain evolved in the context of increasingly complex relationships between the organism and its environment. I think we jump a bit here and we go to the next page and read primary semiotic systems. The second paragraph. Primary semiotic systems, those of other species, and the proto-language of human infants before they embark on I like that on the mother tongue are not stratified, they are inventories of signs without a grammar. Such systems cannot create meaning. Their contexts are given constructs like, here I am, let's be together, I want that. Language, the semiotic of higher order consciousness, is stratified. It has a stratum of lexicogrammar in between the meaning and the expression. In between the meaning and the expression. Very important. In between the meaning and the expression. Ooh. How interesting. The signified part of the original sign has now evolved into a meaning space. Within which the meaning potential can be indefinitely expanded. Indefinitely expanded. Figure 3.2. And listen now. Such a system can create meaning. Its text-forming resources engender a discursive flow which is then modified. Rather like the air stream is modified on the expression plane by articulation and intonation. Nota bene. Nota bene. Do note. So that it becomes at the same time both interactive and representational. And of course, to that, many other things can be added. It's rather difficult, but remember, intonation can change a sentence which is a proposition into a question. That is a car, or that is a car. Everything changes because of the grammar of intonation. The words remain the same, and from a Caesarean perspective, nothing or very little would have changed. We now see that is far from the case. Far from the case. In the primary semiotic content, content is formed directly at the interface with the experiential world. Hence, it is given as described above. In the higher order stratified semiotic, meaning is created across a semiotic space, which is defined by the semantic stratum and the lexicogrammatical stratum. A new and purely abstract level of semiotic organization which interfaces only with the two material interfaces. And listen now, the semiotic energy of the system comes from its lexicogrammar.
Energy.
Yeah. Not
The
from
semiotic energy
it
of
doesn't
the system comes from the lexicogrammar. Yummy, yummy, yummy.
And duly noted here, it does not come from semantic atoms like Saussure would have it. Halliday et al. Are not in accord with Saussure here, or I think common view on language that we see words have their atomic structure and they can be said that one word means something in the world. A bit like the early Wittgenstein or Russell, Quine and Putnam, Hilary Putnam. The thick dimensional semiotic thus creates meaning on two strata with a relation of realization between them. The semantic and the lexicogrammatical, analogous to Hjelmslev's content substance and content form within his content plane. Within his content plane. If we focus now on the ideational function, I got that word. We can represent the outline of the way experience is construed into the meaning in the grammar of English, along with the following lines. Rank, semantic, sequence of figures or figure, or I'd say atoms, realized by lexicogrammatical clause complex clause group phrase. And then we have types of elements. Could be a process like velocity, participating entity, which or what thing does have a velocity, the circumstance, there might be many atoms at a particular moment and they are in conjunction, and fourth, they have a relation. So on the under the semantic, we can easily put a an aspect of only Newtonian understanding. But if we add here, we come to verbal group, nominal group in the lexicogrammatical, adverbial group or prepositional phrase, and conjunction. Conjunction and or, it's very close to relation. We have atom A and atom B in the perpendicular XYZ orthogonal system. For example, the driver drove the bus too rapidly down the hill, so the brakes failed.
Ouch!
Oh
Ouch!
dear!
The driver drove the bus too rapidly down the hill. Ouch! So the brakes fail. Oh, boom!
It's a disaster. What can we do? So we have the elements. The driver was driving the bus too fast down the hill. So we have, and Halliday is really helping not to making it diverge too much from Newton here to make the examples more readable. So that's well appreciated. But we could have had two cars. They would be in a relation, A and B. And remember also down the hill here, it's just so interesting we can get back to that. Could be also be time versus event. Thus, the grammar in a stratified system sets up categories and relationships. Which have the effect of transforming experience into meaning. Into meaning. In creating a formal distinction, such as that between verb and noun, the grammar is theorizing about processes. That a distinction can be made of a very general kind. Between two facets, the process itself and entities that are involved in it. But as remarked above, since the grammar has the power of construing, by the same token, that is, by virtue of being stratified, it can also deconstrue and reconstrue along different lines. Along different lines. Since stratification involves mapping meanings into forms, process into verbal, and participant into nominal, it also allows remapping, say, of process into a nominal form. The previous clause could be reworded as a nominal group. The driver of a rapid downhill driving of the bus. Now it's getting even more Newtonian. The experience has now been retransformed. In other words, it has undergone a process of metaphor. A stratified system has inherent metaphoric power. Inherent metaphoric power.
Power.
Power. Of course, the initial categorizing of experience is already a kind of metaphorical process, since it involves transforming the material into the semiotic. But having said that, I will go on to use the term metaphor just in its canonical sense. That of transformation within the semiotic mood. Within the semiotic mood.
Oh.
Traditionally, the term is applied only to lexical transformations. And listen now, and it's theorized as the same signifier, different signified. For example, spoon-fed, literal meaning feed baby or invalid, with small quantities of easily digested food on a spoon. Metaphorical meaning, provide learner with small quantities of carefully chosen instructional materials. But here, nota bene, I shall be talking about grammatical transformation. That's the big difference. And I shall theorize these as the same signified, that aspect remains, different signifier. For example, break plus fail, congruent construal, the brakes failed, metaphorical construal, brake failure. Notice, however, that what varies is not the lexical items, which are the same in both cases. It is the grammatical categories, so that the metaphor actually proceeds as follows. process plus participant, congruently, clause nominal group plus verb group, metaphorically nominal group, noun plus noun. There we have a relation. I think it's time to put a pause there before it gets too complicated. Divide it in two parts. 2090 here by We Make a Stop. Well needed.
Page 56. Page 56. And which is the last word? Is it noun?
Yes, noun.
Noun plus noun. Okay, noun plus noun. Noun plus noun plus coffee.
Indeed. Plus coffee. Let's have some kaffe med ralla. Coffee with milk. There we have a relation. Two things make a relation. One thing makes a possible circumstance. I will jump a little bit here. Let's go to page 53 first. So as not to make 55, sorry. To page 55.
Voila!
I will give you some hints here. We can call this sentence with the bus driver. It's the example figure 3.3. A congruent example. And congruent, simplified, means closer to ordinary language, at least how it was before Newton. And see here, depending how the grammar is put out, we get quite a different world. But we start with this example first. The driver, seen from a Saussurean perspective, will always be the driver, no matter about the grammar almost. And he was driving, that's the process. Here is in gerund, and that's half a step into nominalization already. But I will refrain to comment that. The bus, it's a participant. So it's not another object. It's too fast, that's the circumstance down the hill. So you can compare too fast and especially down the hill. Down the hill can be compared to the timeline in Newton. This is the circumstance. And here, the two worldviews diverge, so to speak. Bear with me. Down the hill can also be transformed to 14:17 in the afternoon. It's the circumstance. In Newtonian physics, we have an objective time. We learned already from Julian Barber that is very problematic. And in quantum mechanics, we instead have an event. This is a very good example of an event. Down the hill. That's circumstantial, including one or two participants, or could also be two different things. It could be one car driving into another one. This is what is an event in the Wheeler-de Witt equation. No longer do we use the magical universal clock which is not situated anywhere. And this is something noted out already by Einstein. There is no universal clock in Einstein. In quantum mechanics, we go even further. So we have an event. And now look at the a bit more harder one, circumstance number 2, too fast. So to find that in the Newtonian timeline, we need to follow the bus and see, now it's not driving too fast, now it's not driving too fast. Now it is driving too fast, and it's the same time as down the hill, 1417. And so also instead of thinking of the driver as an atom, we now see it's involved in a flow. Something is happening inside the event. Nothing is stillborn. You can you can compare that to the atomistic idea. The atomistic idea doesn't go in carefully enough into these matters. And I will go the whole way back to page 52 after that little introduction. Page 52, the bottom. But sorting out a process of change from the entities that remain in existence throughout and despite the change. That sentence correlates to the semiotic construction, and that's, one could say that that is close to the Saussurean semiotics, or how we ordinarily see the world. We don't think deep enough about these things, and therefore we say there are entities and not flows or events. And I think if you study linguistics, or at least if you studied in the past tense linguistics, grammar would cease as something superfluous, another field almost. Of course, that would admit it changes meaning sometimes, but sort of at the bottom of meaning is the semiotics, the individual atomistic words. They don't see the bigger picture or the relation. They do not see the metaphorical use of grammar and how important that one is. It stops preemptively. Too early, I would say. And then we skip the chapter with or the paragraph with the mind. That doesn't really matter here. And we go to page 54. And at the very start we have, and I won't go too deep into stratification, it's a bit hard to grasp directly. So Halliday has a proposition here. We need not discuss whether it makes sense or if it's likable, but because it's still useful in a pedagogical sense. So he's assuming that a child has only the Saussurean take, only signs. But later on, come into the third paragraph on page 54. The signify part of the original sign has now evolved into a meaning space within which the meaning potential can be indefinitely expanded. And this is close to the process that Wittgenstein explained when he spoke to his Italian friend in the preface of Philosophical Investigations. The Italian friend puts his hand under his chin, his own chin, of course, and says, what is the meaning of this, or what relation does this have into the world? And in that moment, he has a eureka effect. He realizes that the grammar is infinitely important. Halliday is of a similar view, although different, extremely different in how he puts it much more academically. And a parallel we can make here, which is not 100% correct, but the lexicogrammatical aspect of language equals a bit language world in Wittgenstein. And this thing is to help. You can later see that they diverge and are not exactly parallel, but there are differences. And now we can go to page 55. The last sentence there on the page at the bottom. A stratified system has inherent metaphoric power. This is also a wide expansion of Lakoff-Johnson. They did not look into grammar that much. It's mentioned in Metaphors We Live By and Philosophy in the Flesh, and also the book that Lakoff wrote with, I think it was Nunez, mathematics. But here it's much more. Grammar is the metaphoric, has the metaphorical power. It could reconstrue something that's quite alive into something stillborn. And there was a mentioning just above the last. Sorry for jumping here, but it was a nice mentioning here earlier. The drivers over rapid downhill driving of the bus. That sounds much more Newtonian. In the Newtonian take, which from this perspective and the quantum perspective is more limited, still useful, still comes in handy and all that, but it's more limited. And in that take, we normalize everything. So we have velocity, so that on a point, let's see if we can use the whiteboard. I've got whiteboard, yeah, whiteboard. So I put up a whiteboard here. So in the perpendicular system, you can now have points thanks to the nominalization. And you can have an explanation. You can say this has velocity, it has momentum, it has mass, so on. So the normalization is very important, and instead of the circumstance downhill, we have an example, we have in the Newtonian take a timeline t. So it's 14:17 in the afternoon here. So we have x, y, sorry, and z. So you see how normalization parallels nicely with Newton. This is what he does. This is a sort of grammar that became more in the vogue after Newton. So what we are looking here is not exactly the physics of Newton, rather his specific grammar. Or even, I would say, so this is my own perspective, the grammar that others construed in the aftermath of Newton, after Newton. Close the whiteboard. And I will finish off with a last, sorry, it became a lot of comments here. One last thing, page 56. It's on the first paragraph. A lot. I think that's 12 lines down. But here I shall be talking about grammatical transformations, and I shall theorize these as same signified, different signified. For example, break plus fail, congruent construal. The breaks fail, metaphorical construal. Break failure. That break failure is closer to Newton. It's nominalized. It becomes stillborn. It needs to be that way in the Newtonian system. A point that could be made, not made by Halliday, will not be made by me today. It will be made in the future. So you have something to anticipate. And in the future, you could say, well, this stillborn is good in some aspects, but it needs to be complemented by nothing less and nothing more than complementarity. So, Kalle, please come in and comment.
Thank you. So, I will share you. Who is? Let us look. Who is Michael Halliday? It's here. He passed away in 2018. He was a British linguist.
Definitely. And he was often called Mac or M-A-K.
Mac, like Macintosh. Macintosh. Mac.
Yeah. I like that.
And so we have in Halliday's, he correctly points out that in Newton's language, we have nouns, and objective time, objective place, and so forth.
Yeah.
You mentioned Julian Barbour earlier.
Yeah.
He has, I say, Julian Barbour has done great work. He wrote this famous book, The End of Time. And there you have things are events, as you said, as in quantum physics, and also in Einstein, things are more like events. Things are change, or as Heidegger would say, things are participles.
Yeah.
Heidegger emphasized participles, the force of participles. But I think that Julian Barbour made one mistake, and I think mistakes can be eliminating. What was Julian Barbour's mistake? He accepts the change. He is in line with Heraclitus. He accepts the thinking of Heraclitus. But Julian Barbour thinks that the change is an illusion. He thinks that the things that happen, they are only illusions. And so how can you have real, so in quantum physics, the observer is an agent, an active agent. But if you think that everything is only an illusion, it's not real change. So I think there's a mistake to think that everything is an illusion, because then you don't have real change.
No. Julian Barbour is in a place in between the classical mechanics and quantum mechanics, I'd say. This is my proposition here.
Mm-hmm. So in the phrase that we had on page 55 about the driver, it was the previous page. The driver drove the bus too rapidly down the hill, so the brakes failed. Blah. So the real thing here is the participle, which we have only indirectly, was driving. Driving is the change, the real change in quantum physics. So you could say that quantum physics is about being a participle. It's a participle. It's the real thing. Everything is a change. So perhaps that's the lesson for today, that quantum physics is about the participle. That is while Newton prefers the noun.
Yeah, it's a flow, and the circumstance is what's important. The event, which is called often in quantum mechanics, downhill and too fast, are the circumstances and not an illusion of an objective time or a world clock somewhere. And this is why I brought up Julian Barber, because his critique of the world clock, or he rather showed that the world clock wouldn't work. It wouldn't tick.
Yes, let's say for Saussure, whom you mentioned. For Saussure,
Ferdinand Saussure.
like say for Saussure, heal, it is a completely arbitrary word, something arbitrary. It could heal could also be something else, like so it's nothing. It's also illusion, so to say. No, it's not illusion, but it's not the right word. But it's how would you call it? In Saussure, it's arbitrary.
Arbitrary, yeah.
It's only hanging out there.
Yeah. Grammar is not important in
It's something passive.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
It's like you randomly throw out a puzzle on the floor, and you happen only to pick up the word heel, and then you attach it to the word heel, to the something in the word. But there is really there is yes, there is this you could say the finger that points out, the word heel points to the heel. The word heel points to the word to the object heel.
Yeah.
But it's only a line, so to say, in Newton's words.
Yeah.
So okay, so you have the word heel, and then you draw a line to the object heel. But this line is very weak, because we know that according to Saussure, they are only arbitrary.
Yeah.
So you could at what point even cut the word, the line. But there is not. The words doesn't really have any meaning, any power.
No, they are powerless.
For let's say Derrida, he would say that heel. What would Derrida say?
I was, if you don't mind my mention, I was thinking of bringing Derrida up, and then I thought I shouldn't do it because it's going to get too long. But he reconstructs grammar, and he shows the importance of grammar, so to speak, in the Halliday sense, by moving often homonymous words into a different position, or also changing the grammar. With something Halliday called reconstrue. So you can compare reconstrue with deconstruct.
But let's end there, I think.
Yeah. Why, thank you very much, everyone, for listening in. Have a beautiful morning, day, or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now, and thank you very much, Kalle Lundov,
Thank you.
for your excellent comments. Bye-bye.